In yesterday's video, I was sharing some information related to a service that I offered as an occupational therapist, and that was all related to coma stimulation. In today's video, we're moving to a different area of practice, another area that I've been involved in, and that is to the area of schools and education and learning. And today's video answers an issue that's been raised by a number of parents, both when I was working as an occupational therapist and in interacting in various news groups, various other places that I've interacted with people, and I've had parents share a certain concern. And the concern that they share is what to do if their child is bored or they're unhappy and they're refusing to go to school. So in this video, I wanted to share a couple of thoughts, a couple of ideas of things that you can do as parents. If you don't yet know me, my name is Shoshana Shea. I have a background in occupational therapy. I was working as an occupational therapist for about 30 years, and I've moved on to creating videos, writing books, creating journals and workbooks, and using my art in a number of formats. So you'll see quite a lot of what I'm doing in my two websites, which are Be a Happy Mom and Creations from Jerusalem. The two websites are in the process of being upgraded, revamped, some changes taking place. So do visit back from time to time because you're going to see some changes happening. If you're interested in joining my newsletter, do let me know about that as well. So without further ado, let's get on to discussing a couple of thoughts related to what do you do if a child is bored or unhappy at school, they're not wanting to go to school, whatever kinds of behavior is coming out, is playing out. The concern for the parent would be what they know that their child needs to go to school and what are they going to do about it. So here are a couple of ideas of some issues that could be affecting your child, and we'll go through each of those, and then we're going to go through some ideas of some things that you can do as parents, and then obviously after all of that would come the whole area of whether occupational therapy is necessary and so on. So a couple of ideas as to things that could affect a child. The first one is that if the lessons or the subject matter or the manner in which the material is taught is too easy for the child. In other words, he or she grasps the information very, very quickly, and the teacher is still continuing with giving examples or reading material. The child has already grasped and understood that information, and they're needing some more stimulation, something more to keep their mind occupied, to help them to progress at their level. This obviously is a child who's more intelligent, a more gifted child, and it's important that lessons and learning happens according to what the level of the child is. So there was an old school thought that a child who was developing or who was functioning and whose intelligence was on a higher level would sometimes miss years of school. Sometimes they don't do that anymore. They keep the child back at their age level, but the teacher would have to keep preparing lessons that would be to the intelligent level of that child. So the whole area of whether a child is more gifted, more intelligent, that is one reason as to why a child might become bored or unhappy at school. They are frustrated because they've understood what it is that's being taught, and they want to learn new information, or they want to expand the issue or the idea and learn it in more detail or take it to another level. So that is an area of a reason as to why a child might be concerned or bored or unhappy at school. The flip side of that is if the lessons are too difficult for a child and they're struggling perhaps, and they don't know whether to mention that issue to the teacher or to their parent, perhaps they're embarrassed, perhaps they don't understand or can't verbalize exactly what the difficulty is. That's another issue that could be contributing to a child being bored, unhappy, dissatisfied, frustrated. All of those things could be possible terms to use to explain how your child is feeling, and there could be many more also. Some other ideas could be whether the child doesn't like the style of teaching. Perhaps the teacher prefers to read from the textbook and the child wants to have more hands-on, more visual, and that brings us also to the idea of what kind of learner is your child. Do they learn more from hearing, auditory, from visual, or from practical? All of those would have an effect as to your child's ability to function and to grow and to develop and to blossom and to thrive in the classroom, obviously. The next would be related to the teacher, and that is if the teacher at any stage had highlighted anything related to the child that could have embarrassed the child, whether the teacher said something that was a compliment and the child was uncomfortable about that in front of the rest of the class. Perhaps some other people in the class made an inappropriate or an uncomfortable or a nasty comment in response later on in break time. Or it could be that the teacher had reprimanded the child or embarrassed the child in some other way. These things do happen, and that could be a reason as to why a child doesn't want to go back to school again. It could be also sometimes it happens that just as teachers might have a child that they favor in terms of they prefer this child and they're always giving opportunities to this child, there are also sometimes, unfortunately, I've experienced it myself, so I can share that it does definitely happen, is that there are times that a teacher might always be calling on a certain child if there's a rustling of a paper or there's somebody talking, and the teacher might say, Johnny, don't do XYZ, and maybe it wasn't Johnny, and maybe Johnny wasn't even in school that day, which happens sometimes. Another reason could be if the students had picked on the child, or there'd been some kind of bullying, or also sibling rivalry taking place that's upsetting your child. Do you know what the relationship is between your children, whether they get along well together, they're good friends, they're always helping each other, or is there some kind of underlying rivalry that's taking place? Related to that and to siblings comes to whether there's anything taking place in the home. It could be from a difficult situation to even a joyous situation. From the one end of the spectrum could be a relative, a parent, or a sibling who's ill, perhaps in hospital, or perhaps there's a special needs child in the home, and this particular child is not getting as much attention for whatever reason. Mummy's in hospital and there aren't enough hours in the day and enough people to take care of everybody and all the chores in the family, and perhaps too much responsibility has fallen to that particular child. Or it could be that a parent or a relative passed away, or a parent or a relative moved away, they moved to a different country, or the family themselves moved and now the child is changing school and they haven't yet adjusted. That also could be a reason. Or on the other end of the spectrum, happier note, it could be that there's been a new baby in the family, there's a new pet that's come into the family. All of these things could be a distraction. As much as it's a joyous situation, it could be a distraction. Or it could be that the child's feeling a little bit left out because now all the attention is being given to this new baby, this new pet, this new whatever that's come into the home. So those are other reasons. It could be that there's some conflict happening between the parents and the child is picking up on that. Or it could be that one of the parents is needing to change jobs, or they've had cutbacks in the workplace of one of the parents, and the child is concerned and worried about that. All of these kinds of things have an effect on children and can impact on their learning and their being willing to go to the school. It could be that there's been a separation of the child from either, if it's a set of twins, some twins are not so happy being separated, even if they're in the same standard, but they're two classes in the same standard, and now they're not able to sit together in the classroom, or they're not able to be doing the same classes together, or perhaps the one is learning a language and the other one's learning a skill, whether it's needlework or art or woodwork or something else. All of these things could start to have some kind of an unsettled feeling for the child. It could be that a child's best friend has moved to another country or moved to a different class, or even within the class, that the teacher has moved the child away from somebody that they were getting along well with. Perhaps they worked really well together. Perhaps they discussed things as they were doing their work, and that was a support and that was of benefit to the child, and now they've lost that situation that they're used to. Moving on from the relationships and the more emotional side to the physical side, and we come to, let's go through the body and in a sort of a sequence. The first is if the child's experiencing any kind of discomfort, if they're having headaches, if they have any visual problem. Perhaps they can only see the blackboard if they sit right at the front of the class, and for whatever reason they're positioned at the back of the class. When last did your child have their eyes tested or their hearing tested? Does your child have any hearing problems or earache perhaps, or perhaps they've got toothache? Have you taken your child to have all their teeth checked? Because that could also be an indicator. Is there anything else going on at home that could be perhaps a little bit unrelated to the home, but it's still impacting? For example, if the neighbors are making a lot of noise regularly at certain times, or perhaps always on the weekend, the first day before a Saturday night or a Sunday night, and the child's going back to school on a Sunday morning or a Monday morning, and here is a situation where there was a lot of noise from neighbors and they weren't able to get to sleep, but they had to get up nevertheless, and they had to get ready for school, and perhaps they had some responsibilities before they got to school. Speaking of going to school, what's happening in their transport, in their journey as they're going to school? Is there anything, whether they're in lift scheme and something's happening in the lift scheme, or if they're going in a school bus together with others, is there anything happening on the bus that could be upsetting the child? That could also be an indicator. It could be that there's something else happening if the backpack or the whatever means that the child is taking their things to and from school, if their backpack is either not the same as, it's different to how the other children in the school have their backpack, or it's heavy, or it's causing some kind of discomfort to the child, that could be an indicator as to why they don't want to go to school. Also, the type of clothing that they have. If a child is from a slightly lower socioeconomic family group, and the other children in the school are, perhaps they're changing their clothes more regularly. Perhaps if it's a school that has uniforms, is this child maybe getting secondhand passed down through the family uniforms, or is there any problem with the clothing that they're wearing to go to school? All of these things could make a child feel embarrassed, and then they don't want to go to school. If they're tired, we mentioned already, but it could be also if your child has any food allergy, or if there's a need that your child for some reason is not having the opportunity to have the fluids intake that they need. Some children are needing to drink quite a lot more to have their water or what have you, and perhaps the school is much stricter about letting the child go to the bathroom when they need to, or if there's some kind of a toileting problem. For example, if a child has a urinary infection, or some other kind of a stomach upset, anything else that's happening within the body that is an issue that the child is dealing with, and it makes it difficult for them to concentrate in the class because they're feeling unwell, or they're hungry, or they have an allergy, or something else is happening that's causing a problem for them. It could be also that there's been a problem. We mentioned a new pet in the home. Sometimes there could be a problem with the pet. For example, the pet has become ill, or the pet, for whatever reason, has gone for a short period of time to a different relative to stay with the grandparents, and now the child is missing their pet. All of these things can have an impact and make it difficult and challenging for your child to go to school and to function optimally. So those are quite a number of ideas. The question is, what could you as a parent do to be able to assist your child? And the first thing that I would recommend is to have some conversations with your child. Let them know that you're concerned, that you want them to be happy, that you want them to succeed and to do the best that they can, and that you're interested in knowing what's going on and to be able to find a solution with it, together with the child, that can help them to function more effectively. It could be that you need to take your child to the doctor, or to have those eye tests, the hearing test. Maybe the child needs glasses, and that could be quite a simple solution. It could be also that a child needs vision therapy if the eye movements are not, the two eyes are not working systematically together. The coordination is a little bit out. Either there's a bit of a squint, or the one eye is a lazy eye. All of these can have an impact. So to check out the health of your child and to have a conversation with your child. Related to a conversation, you could also do some drawing with your child and have them say, for example, to write down or to draw what do they enjoy the best at school, or to draw something that depicts what are they feeling, what are they experiencing, what is their day like at school, or how do they see their school, or any kinds of ideas to have them draw their school. If you start to come across any kind of a hesitation or a difficulty, or the picture starts to bring up things that is of any concern, then that would be an indication as to either to go for testing with a psychologist, an occupational therapist, an art therapist. There are a range of different types of therapies that could be of benefit to your child, depending on what the issue is that's taking place. Something else you could do is engage in or begin to be involved in some imaginative play. Or even if you're doing a board game together, it could be that the child will start to open up and to talk a little bit. Speak to the teacher, speak to the other siblings. Keep a record for yourself if there are any specific times of the day or any issues that you're coming up with, that you're noticing any specific change. If you're noticing any specific changes, you could speak to your child, you could speak to the teacher. Those are some ideas as to what you can do. And obviously, if there are difficulties, that your child is having difficulty learning, then it could be that your child is in need of either physiotherapy, occupational therapy, a psychologist intervention. There are a range of potential, or perhaps they just need a little bit of extra lessons, or they need something to stimulate them a little bit more. Somebody who's a brighter child, do you need to go to the library and help them to get some books, or to figure out what kinds of ways you can, perhaps you can put a password protected something on your computer to enable them to be able to see certain videos that would help them to grow and develop. Maybe your child is really itching and excited. They want to do a lot more creating. They want to progress more and express themselves more, whether it's in writing or drawing or music or another interest. Maybe you need to find some kind of an extramural for your child. There are a number of opportunities and of interests. Those are some ideas for you that you can keep in mind. The one other thought that I would share before we leave this topic, and I leave it for you to put a comment in the comments below as to how you found the video and what ideas and thoughts you have. But something else to keep in mind is, if the size of the class is too large for the child, that the child is not getting sufficient attention, or if the type of other children in the class are not suitable for the child. There's either too much talking and too much distraction, or any way in which the child is feeling very, very different and doesn't fit in with the other children, then sometimes a change of school is the answer. Or it could be that there's been some kind of a situation happening at home and that child wasn't getting sufficient attention for whatever reason. Perhaps the child didn't want to make a fuss, and so being busy with a new baby or a new parent or whatever the issue is happening at home, the parents have got busy and didn't notice, didn't pay enough attention. Perhaps you need to introduce something that's been very beneficial to in a number of families that I've worked with, is to introduce at meal times, to start thinking of talking about and expressing what emoji do they feel like that day. For example, a smiley face, an angry face, a confused, whatever the face is, and have a little bit of discussion, and to go around all the members of the family, because that opens discussion and it gets the child to realize that everybody has emotions, everybody has sometimes a bad day or a difficult experience, and it gets more relationships, more interaction happening within the members of the family, which could make greater unity, greater cohesion, and it could be beneficial to everybody. So with that, I hope that this video has been of benefit for you. If you're interested in more videos of this nature, let me know in the comments below. If you're wanting some more videos related to my art, I'm still doing some work related to preparing my art for putting onto the print on products. I've been busy on a couple of projects, so I'll be getting back to that shortly. I haven't forgotten it. It's on the cards, it's coming along, and with that, I wish you a lot of blessing, a lot of enjoyment with your family, and with that, I wish you a very blessed day, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. Ciao for now.